Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. For more than 150 years, ours has been a congregation striving to have open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom, many spiritual paths, many identities. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, and your hopes for our world are welcome here. Our doors are closed because our hearts are open, living our values of care and compassion. You can stay connected online, and if you're a newcomer or visitor, visit our website or contact Melissa Egler, our coordinator of congregational life, to find our Pathway to Membership class at your own pace online with live gatherings as well, so you can find out more about how to get connected in this community. Please stay connected through online coffee hour every Sunday, as well as small groups for spiritual reflection, justice book groups, and a variety of opportunities online. And Wednesday night forums most of the year. This Wednesday night we will take a break, but regather next Wednesday, December 2nd, for a special mid-year board update and forum, so join us that Wednesday evening. And today we kick off our annual Guest at Your Table program with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Amy will tell you more later in the service, and you can find in your e-news how to pick these up or virtually just donate later in the season. The Guest at Your Table program every year partners with local grassroots organizations around the country, especially in underserved communities. So we invite you to read the stories, learn more about the program to create a more just and equitable world. And today's offering will go to support our church mission, including half for our Human Needs Fund, offering financial assistance to members and friends. You can give at uurochmn.org/give. Thank you for your generosity. And watch your e-news or check our website for various holiday services and giving opportunities in the coming week, including Guests at Your Table boxes, as well as a virtual sharing tree and a special drive-through holiday event on Sunday, December 20th. So watch your e-news or contact the church for more information. Finally, in the words of the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes, minister of this church in the 1870s, may our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together.
This is the Unitarian Universalist Church. This is the Church of the Flaming Chalice. This is the Church of the Open Mind. This is the Church of the Loving Heart, where friends come together and share.
I always seem to find a title for these calls to worship, and this morning I'd like to call it, What Then? When we are raised to the bone of our resilience by problems beyond our control, lacerations of the heart that feel barely bearable, and are left with little solid ground underneath our feet, what then? I recently lived with a small rolling cart that was annoyingly one-wheel tippy. That is to say, one wheel had no longer any interest in touching the ground in the same fashion as the other three wheels. I quickly sensed it was an opportunity for me. I discovered the way to extract the errant wheel and found just the right size and shape washer that fit in a way that no longer left a gap. Then I reassembled the parts and returned balance to the cart and some harmony into my life. I've always been a fix-it person. My dad was a fix-it person, probably because his children were always breaking something. For me, I suppose it is the I can do it challenge coupled with the creative mental exercise of problem solving. If the task is not too daunting, I actually enjoy it. In addition to this joy is the satisfaction of knowing that I have righted some wrong in the world like a superhero of microcosmic proportions. This only happens in my imagination, of course. In simpler times, I used to fix cars a lot. Mechanical mechanisms wear out, and there is always a good chance you will discover what wore out and why simply by visual inspection or possibly tracing where a noise is coming from, or even a Sherlock Holmes-style observation leading to an elementary deduction. Soon, or sometimes not so soon, you will be rewarded with an aha moment, if you are a clever enough person, Watson or no Watson. On the other hand, electronics, not my favorite, are seldom so clear and to me a lot less fun. You may need a greater level of in-depth background knowledge and a good set of gauges along with your tools to measure the unseen actions of unseen electronic components in order to determine what might be causing a problem. And when I am my human self, I find I'm in another realm entirely. I know a few things that I can do to fix myself if something is not right with me, at least physically. I can take an ibuprofen for a headache or massage a sore muscle to revive it. And if I break an arm, I know enough to go to a doctor who then fixes the break and sends me home, where I rely on my own body to complete the process through healing. Emotional and mental failures always, for me, make for interesting discussion, but simply will not fit the Sherlock Holmes style of problem solving through observation and cause and effect. Problems of the spirit take on a complexity when feelings and emotions are being driven by our own perceptions. Healing may actually be needed before fixing. I try to remind myself that in the natural world, nature never fixes itself. It never fixes anything. No trees or sandbars are put back the way they were after a hurricane, or rocks after a landslide. The natural world only heals, and usually through change. Sometimes for people like my fix-it self, it becomes a little difficult not to look at the world and think about a place that simply cannot be fixed. Whether it is the government, the environment, racial tensions, or even this virus thing that is so alarming. What then? Then I will shift my focus to healing. I share with you a quote from Fred Recklaw, Partners in Care, Medicine and Ministry Together. Cure may occur without healing. Healing may occur without cure. Cure alters what is. Healing offers what might be. Cure is an act. Healing is a process. Cure seeks to change reality. Healing embraces reality. Cure takes charge. Healing takes time. Cure avoids grief. Healing assumes grief. Cure speaks. Healing listens.
These days, we're all spending an awful lot of time at home. Whether by choice or not, it really is probably the safest place for many of us to be. Imagine being in a home that wasn't safe, that was being overrun because of natural or man-made disasters, or being forced out of your home because there was no food, or even being forced out of your country because people didn't agree with the way you saw things. Well, today I'm going to introduce you to 4 very special guests. And what I'm hoping you do is something we haven't been able to do for a long time either. And that's to invite these 4 special guests to your table. Well, not really to your table, but virtually to your table. This year's UUSC Guest at Your Table box centers around home and what we can do to help others around the world and here in the United States feel safer being at their home. First, let's take a trip down to southern Louisiana. This is where we will meet a leader of a tribe of indigenous peoples who can trace their ancestors back to the very first people we know who lived in this area. Chief Cheryl has been advocating for her community as long as she can remember. She has seen the land her tribe calls home drastically change in her lifetime. Rising sea levels and saltwater infiltration have destroyed homes and farmland that her tribe depends on. Recently, Chief Cheryl joined with other First Nations and Indigenous people facing similar climate force displacement, taking their fight all the way to the United Nations. Chief Cheryl explains it like this. We have joined together with our Alaskan relatives to bring awareness to the damages caused by greed and selfishness, with a complete disregard for Mother Earth and all living beings. We are showing the world that you do not have to just sit by and watch our planet, our health, and our lifeways be destroyed. Thousands of miles away, across the Pacific Ocean, Mark Steege, a climate researcher, is working on similar climate issues facing communities in the Marshall Islands. Mark is an Indigenous scientist and is committed to involving his community in the climate crisis research so they can fully understand what they are facing and what to plan for. Collaboration is key to handle complexity, he says, and so I've been motivated to develop the tools for collaboration by sharing and adapting both Western and Indigenous knowledge to promote innovation and identity. Not only does the UUSC partner with people who are trying to protect their homes, they also partner with those who have been forced to find a new home elsewhere. This brings us a short jaunt from the Marshall Islands. This brings us just a short jaunt from the Marshall Islands to the country of Burma, also known as Myanmar. Since 2017, over 700,000 Rohingya Muslims have been forced to flee their home in Burma to neighboring countries. This is due to the violence against them by the government. This is Suji. As a teenager, he was arrested for going to school. He had to escape his home to avoid punishment by local authorities. To build a new community in his new home country, Suji co-founded the Elam Empowerment Community Center, a community center based in Malaysia that has had trainings for youth as well as helps distribute food to other refugees who have had to flee Burma. Suji says, "We try to build that sense of community wherever we are, wherever we live." Of course, the Rohingya Muslims who were forced out long to return to their home country, But for the time being, Suji works with other Rohingya leaders to provide a space where refugees can feel safe and free. Back across the Pacific Ocean, over in Central America, migrants are seeking a place they can feel free as well. People who live in countries such as Guatemala are still dealing with the aftermath of civil wars, as well as the current climate change bringing drought to the area, local governments forcing people from their homes in their country, and mining and industrialization that is ruining their land. Adela Ramirez is a human rights advocate in Guatemala. She says, "The majority of people live here in conditions that are not good, and poverty prevents them from fully living their lives. People cross the borders in search of new opportunities for their families. That is why we always say, migrating is an act of love." Wow, this is a lot to process. With acts as cruel and small-minded as these, what can we do to prove that no matter where we are in this world, we are connected? That's why I ask you to invite these 4 people to your table. So starting today, we're asking you to come and pick up your guest at your table box. There will be some available right outside the front door of the church, so just swing on by and pick them up. They'll be there until supplies run out. And for the next 4 weeks, make this box the center of your table. Make it the center point for discussions about things that are happening around the world. Maybe take some extra change or dollars or even checks, or there's a website right on here where you can go and donate directly to the UUSC. We're asking you to help these people in partnership with the UUSC, assuring that everybody has a safe place to call home.
Good morning. It is good to be with you. We are separated by space and time, but we are still together, and we gather in this virtual way as we continue to create a place of communal caring and connection. Be enriched by the virtual presence of each other and draw yourself closer into the heart of love at this time of service and reflection. In this time together, we ask that our minds be open, our hearts welcoming, and our arms embracing. We honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Sandy and John McLaughlin, serving as our caring coordinators for the last 2 weeks, arranging care for our members and friends in need. Ann Lean will take over tomorrow for the next 2, and we thank her for that. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through these challenging times. And during this time of increasing needs in our lives and community, we are encouraging you to reach out for support and help if you are experiencing challenges. Many of us may need additional care, whether it be personal pastoral care, grocery delivery, or an errand run. And we encourage you to reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. We thank all of you who have served our congregation in this way over the last few months. Today's flower is shared by Karen Tarara for no special reason other than just because it's beautiful. In this community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person here has value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those whose lives are touched by sadness, by illness, by worry, or by loneliness. We revel in those who are celebrating joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all. May all of us find comfort, hope, joy, and healing strength in this community. We are happy to report that Lori Helmers is rapidly recovering from a November 5th outpatient surgery on her right foot. She says, "The stitches are out and I ditched the knee scooter for a walking boot for the next 4 weeks." She is counting the days until horseback riding and speed walking can become COVID-safe sources of activity, and we wish her a speedy healing. We celebrate with Kirk Payne his retirement from Quarry Hill Nature Center. For 24 years, Kirk has brought science, outdoor exploration, and nature appreciation to countless school children, families, and visitors, not to mention numerous UU kids over the years. His impact has reached so many in this community, and we wish him continued exploration of new things in his retirement. As we have over these last few months, we need to continue to reach out to all in our community to let them know we are still here and still holding and supporting them. We encourage you all to send cards and make calls to those you love and support local businesses, opening the doors of communication and community. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath and breathe deep the breath of life. Find your breath and center down. Feel below you the earth with its ancient turning. Feel above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you here between, in this moment right here, right now. Invite you into this time of meditation and this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God of 1,000 names and beyond all naming, may the healing we need in this world be rooted in compassion and in justice, knowing that healing means truth-telling about our holiday stories, about our cultures, about our families. That healing means reparations and repair and rebuilding, always and forever seeking a healing that acknowledges harm toward the marginalized and imagines a new way forward of justice, relationship, and love. We hold this day all those who suffer in mind, in body, or spirit. I invite you to bring to mind and heart the names you're holding in your own soul and spirit these days, in joy or in sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this sacred hour to speak their names. for all those names, spoken, unspoken. May we be forever grateful for the fabric of love and of life that weaves us together. May those threads hold us in love and in strength. These words of meditation come from Mary Oliver. I don't want you to just sit at the table. I don't want you just to eat and be content. I want you to walk into the fields where the water is shining and the rice has risen. I want you to stand there far from the white tablecloth. I want you to fill your hands with mud like a blessing. May we move far from the pristine tables, the false stories, the false sense of our own selves, and know that healing comes when we find the sacred in the most common, sometimes messy parts of our lives, and hold it like the earth in our hands, like a blessing. Amen.
Good morning. I'd like to give you a little introduction to our next piece. It's another virtual choir piece, and this one is special, although every virtual choir piece is special for us. We are about to present a world premiere, and this is a piece of music that I arranged and Luke wrote words for, and it's dedicated to our musician emerita, Connie Schulke. And this is based on Connie's favorite hymn, We Gather Together, and I thought it would be fitting for our service today. And so Luke, here are his words, and then you'll hear him in a bit with the music. We gather in spirit across generations. We gather our ancestors' songs in our heart. Their melody holds us. Their courage still enfolds us. Our song is joined in harmony, each soul apart. We're blessed by the artistry of music makers who give us the courage to each share our song. Their melodies lead us to harmonies that heal us. We praise the gift of music to carry us on. For poets, musicians, and artists of spirit, creating the beauty that lifts us in song, for hearts to be caring, for justice to be daring, we sing the love of ages as we journey on. We gather together in thanks. And now enjoy the piece performed by our Olden Walden Hill Vocal Ensemble, which has our new accompanist, Austin Ferguson, as well as choir members from New York and Germany, as well as right here in Minnesota. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Connie.
We gather in spirit across generations. We carry our ancestors' songs in our hearts. Their melody holds us, their courage still enfolds us. Our song is joined in harmony, each soul apart.
We're blessed by the artistry of music makers who give us their courage to each share a song. Their melodies lead us to harmonies that heal us. We praise the gift of music to carry us on.
For poets, musicians, and artists of spirit,
Creating the beauty that lifts us in
says to be daring.
We sing the love of ages as we journey on and on. We gather in spirit across generations. We carry our ancestors' songs in our hearts. Their melody holds us, their courage still enfolds us. Our song is done in harmony, each soul apart. We gather together in thanks.
If you've ever been hospitalized, you know that healing, rest, and recovery can be difficult, if not impossible. The environment is foreign, unpredictable, and uncomfortable. The staff, hopefully friendly, may talk too fast, use words you don't understand, and seem rushed. Sleep and privacy are often elusive. Between noise in the hallway, an uncomfortable bed, being awoken for labs, blood pressure checks, and trips to the bathroom, you're lucky to get a couple solid hours of sleep or any time alone. Information is often given piecemeal, with dismissal instructions crammed into the moments before you leave the hospital. Now, with COVID, healing can seem even more difficult, with everyone wearing masks, restrictions on when and if your loved ones can visit, delays in care, and being sent home early to free up the bed for the next patient. Despite the odds against it, I see healing happen. As a bedside nurse, I have the opportunity to see it happen firsthand. I see it through time spent with caregivers. I see it when patients get out of bed and do things often taken for granted, like using the restroom, going for a walk, and eating a meal. I see it when patients are able to smile or receive a phone call from a friend. As their nurse, I get to facilitate healing through listening to their stories, their worries, their concerns. I get to joke and laugh with them. I get to bathe and walk them. I am there to answer questions and help them ask tough questions from their medical team. This year has been especially trying due to COVID and its effects on everything in our lives. That combined with the trauma endured during the last presidential administration, we all have emotional, physical, and spiritual wounds to heal. Our faith is ever more vital during these times. On Monday, I listened to the governor's press conference and heard from 2 bedside nurses that gave passionate narratives. You could hear the sadness, anger, and anxiety in their voices, begging for people to follow the restrictions and stay home for the holidays, to help ease the stress on the system and help save lives. It made me think about the trauma and loss these healthcare workers are experiencing and how they will need time and support to heal. Working during these challenging times with complex patients or even challenging coworkers, I remind myself of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. My UU faith encourages me to seek justice and equity for my patients and families, to show compassion for myself, my colleagues, and my patients. As a woman, mother, daughter, wife, and nurse, I have experienced loss, trauma, pain, and illness. These life experiences have all given me the chance to heal. Can't say I'm completely there, but like Erica Beecher said last week, healing is a journey. My UU faith helps me reflect on these experiences in a way that honors my humanness, allows me to reframe my narrative, and develop resilience. I find that emotional space and time allow for healing. Our church community helps me find this space and time through prayer, worship, and fellowship, and for that I'm grateful.
Perhaps the world ends here by the first Native American poet laureate, Joy Harjo. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it, babies' teeth at the corners. They scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor, falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth at this table and prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table, while we are laughing and crying and eating of the last sweet bite.
Every year it was sort of the same. Arriving early afternoon, the kitchen bustling, the house overly warm sometimes, the table spread with another little table at the end and a folding table beyond that, subtly and seamlessly held together with the laced tablecloths that just kept adjusting levels as you went, still with a few stains that wouldn't come out even after all the years. I would enter my grandparents' home for Thanksgiving in what felt like a dress rehearsal for the Christmas gathering a month later. Same house, same table, same people, mostly the same food. When I was old enough and strong enough, my grandma would often ask me shortly after we entered the house, "Would you go grab some folding chairs from the other room and pull up another chair, put it at the table?" Because each year, while mostly it seemed the same people, it wasn't really the same every year. And almost always I had to go get another chair after the first or the second chair for someone new, or switch around a chair for some unexpected change. The year that a friend came, or the year some relative didn't, or the weather was too bad to travel, or someone was ill, or this older cousin was now married and with the other family half the time, and so on. It seemed to me this is how it had always been. The holidays were always here, always this way, right? The same food, the same people, the same place, always and forever. Of course, I figured out through those little changes each year of different people coming and going that larger changes would happen too. Even after years of tradition and familiarity, people grow up, some move away, loved ones can't travel for whatever reason, and because what actually happened every year, always and forever, just a block off of Main Street there at my grandparents' house, what happened every year was change to various degrees. It changed when Grandma moved into the assisted senior living and we had holiday meals in the dining hall. It changed when Grandma died and then Grandpa was still in the house and then he moved somewhere else Two, and a change to other times with other family or friends, here for a time, then gone, maybe back again the following year. And I realize, hearing bits and pieces of stories over the years of how that happened a generation before, too, and a generation before that. Before the gathering was here, it was at another house, what seemed like forever. And before that, a different house, certainly, which seemed like forever. And eventually I realized the only things that remained the same were change and stories told, memories shared, and love. We carry our ancestors' songs in our hearts, sang the choir. And isn't it good to have a choir again? Not long ago, as your worship team was reflecting on what in the world are we doing? How is it going? Are we doing the right things? What are the right things? Are we doing enough? Are we doing it too much? Are we doing it the right way, the wrong way, whatever that is? You know, all those questions that you might wake up with every day to start another morning of uncertainty. But this time we were going in a bit of a spiral of how do we keep our spirits nourished? How do we keep the spirit of this church alive? How do we keep the spirit of worship alive and what it can and should mean in our lives when we are so distant? And Joe Mish, as artists often do, simply said, you know, when I play Bach on the strings, I feel like he's with me, and others who've played that music are with me. We talked about how we're always playing the music of those who are far away, long gone, and they are alive with us. And our church people are alive in our hearts across the distance, scattered across this prairie and far beyond it, even across the world. Because love and beauty stay connected over time and space and separation. That's what's miraculous about them, even if it isn't the same. Or in other words, we carry the songs of our ancestors in our hearts, in our bones, in our bodies, as the choir sang today. Stories and traditions are handed down, sometimes written, sometimes with spoken word or with songs or simply notes echoing a story with feeling and with harmony. And each year, as familiar and consistent as it may feel in our hearts, each year changes in some way. Each year is a bit different in the world, in our lives, in our souls. And over time, we learn more and more of the story. It keeps being told. It doesn't end. Each year, the chairs at the harvest table in our hearts are set up differently, placed together however the day unfolds and how many ever chairs you need to unfold there in your soul to hold whatever needs to be held at the table right here, right now, this day, this year. Greg shared this morning about the natural world, that it doesn't fix things, but it heals. And there's a difference. That healing is about embracing the truth of it all, of us all, honoring the broken pieces of our lives and stories along with the beautiful ones, bound together to hold the fullness of our humanity, of our world. Thanksgiving itself, of course, is a story filled with multiple stories, most of them false stories, being passed down over time of harmonious relations gathering together for a shared meal, something we want to believe, even on the small scale. Harmonious holiday meals, when we really think about it, aren't all that common, where all is well and right with the world. And then on the larger scale, if we don't try to just fix it or smooth it over or tell almost a fairy tale story, we can acknowledge and own the fact that things weren't harmonious in some magical, mythical first Thanksgiving. And if anything this year, as one colleague shared recently, is that foundational to this holiday story, if we're honest, is people coming uninvited with illness into the home of another, causing harm. If we're honest, too, about our stories, our spiritual forebears in Unitarianism and Universalism, we have complex and troubling roots in the creation of the Thanksgiving myths and those early Puritan congregations that devastated indigenous life. For indigenous people, of course, Thanksgiving is a day of mourning, especially among the Wampanoag people in Massachusetts, to acknowledge the genocide that happened. That's not an easy, feel-good story to tell. And we also know that there are other stories. If we think of Thanksgiving not just with a capital T as one mythical thing, but gatherings of giving thanks that so many cultures, including indigenous and Wampanoag culture, dating back generations of giving thanks for the harvest this time of year. These aren't easy stories to tell. It's not easy to just set that all out on the table, even if we've known these truths for a long time. But the only way healing can happen is if we break open the stories that we'd like to keep closed and push away, the stories we're told or we wish to believe of how things are. If we keep adding space to the tables that we thought were full, that we thought were set in stone for time and eternity, always and forever the same way, and realize that change sometimes happens quickly, all of the sudden, unexpected, and sometimes change happens gradually, little by little, slowly. And perhaps part of our calling these days, in an effort to heal from broken histories, in an effort to survive a pandemic, in an effort to let the consistent thing of any holiday be helping after helping of love and justice and compassion. Perhaps our calling is to make more room at the table, to keep pulling up another chair and another, and remember that perhaps it is the empty chairs and spaces at the table that hold a lot of truth, that allow us to be even more truthful and keep learning and growing about what we've lost and what we might have yet to gain. The world begins at the kitchen table, writes Indigenous Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. No matter what, we must eat to live, she writes. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at its corners. It is here that children are given instruction on what it means to be human. This year, perhaps the empty chair is an altar of love, to remember those distanced this year from us for a variety of reasons, in body, in spirit, in heart. There is a tradition in Judaism to keep an empty chair and an open door for the prophet Elijah to join at the Passover Seder meal. Perhaps we all need empty chairs in our homes to leave space for the love that we know fills it from far away, because love has no border, no distancing needed. Knowing that time and space and public health recommendations change. They have before. They will again. But we leave an empty space. We leave an open door to remember the presence of those not here, the stories we are yet to know or to really recognize or yet to truly tell and be changed by. How are we making room? Room enough at our tables, room enough at the table of our heart, pulling up chair after chair after chair to hear the wider stories of our humanity, the hard stories sometimes, How are we paying attention in new ways to the empty chairs and those empty spaces and what they mean about us, not assuming those stories are long past or somehow have been fixed, but we are still healing, and there's so much healing to do. If we notice the possibility, notice the story we might be able to hear, to pay attention now to in a new way. What guests are we making room for at our table, in our heart, in our world? And when do we realize that maybe we're not and shouldn't be the host at all, that we're always a guest in this world to the sacred stories of each other, to the sacred stories of the oppressed and the marginalized? We'll have some empty chairs at our tables, at our table in our home this year. I'm sure there will be empty chairs in many homes, maybe yours. And maybe if we listen to the songs in our hearts and we set a feast for the soul in ancient traditions of giving thanks in the best ways, that acknowledges the fullness of our humanity as well as our possibility. That every part of the story, the consistent, the changing, can find a place, can be given a place, can take their place at the table. Or in the words of poet Jan Richardson, and the table will be wide. Maybe the table and our idea of the table has to be wider than we thought this year. And the table will be wide, she writes, and everywhere, everywhere, everywhere will be the feast. Remember, the heart can travel. Your heart can travel. And its table is wider than you can imagine, and there is more space for more chairs over and over again. The heart can travel over the river, through the wood. It knows the way to carry you. Amen.